Welcome to Mystery of the Soul, where curiosity meets spirituality. Are you curious about metaphysics, the mystical, and the supernatural? Would you like to learn how they are all part of contemporary spirituality? Join me, Leo McCarthy, a spiritual mentor, psychic medium, Reiki master, EFT tapping practitioner, and a shaman.
And I'm Julia LeBlanc, an awakening soul, a doctor of physical therapy, author, yoga teacher, and Reiki master. We hope that our unique perspectives open the door to an amazing journey of discovery.
Please join us and our guests in conversations about spiritual awakenings, our life's purposes, and mysteries of the soul. Hi guys, welcome back to Mystery of the Soul. I'm Leo and I have Julia here with me again. And just as a reminder, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share us to help us grow the channel and just continue to deliver the messages for people to receive. We have a special guest with us from the UK, and we have Nikita here with us with Journey with Nikita. And Nikita, I'm going to turn it over to you and just kind of introduce yourself and maybe get us started with like maybe your origin story of kind of what got you on your path.
Yeah, so namaste, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. And I guess the best place to start is when I was a child. I was born and brought up in the UK, but I remember questioning myself as to where I came from because, obviously being British born, but having Indian origin, I asked myself the question at an early age, who am I? And it's really this question that's fueled my life's path. And I feel like 4 decades later, I'm still asking it. But that journey took me to India. I ended up staying for 10 years. And that was a real experience, learning Indian classical dance, yoga philosophy, doing meditation practice. I stayed in ashrams and really got to experience life in India and really start to gain answers to my questions. And then I set up my own dance studio in the UK. I ran that for 20 years, and I've just recently stepped back from that to explore this new path of speaking, mentoring, and I'm working on my book as well.
Nikita, I know one of the things that you talk about is karma to Dharma. Was there a defining moment in your life where you realized that you were living for maybe like an obligation more than like an authentic purpose?
Yeah, so for anyone who's not aware, the karma to Dharma movement, as I call it, it's exactly what you said. It's living from that space of obligation. It's living from the ego mind. And whereas Dharma is from our soul, from our higher self. And so the journey that I've been on was when I realized that after 20 years of running my dance school, although I appeared to be successful, I had awards, I had recognition, I wasn't truly in line with my soul's purpose. And that's when I decided to break free from that. And that's when I decided to step into my Dharma. And that's really how this journey and movement has come about.
Nikita, how did you come about figuring out, I guess, what your Dharma was?
So it was a period of about 5 years. I would say it started during the pandemic. And just like with all of us, I got that little voice in my mind and I tried to ignore it. I tried to push it away. And that's that voice of our intuition telling us that something's out of alignment. I'd had health scares, I'd had illnesses. And I believe now, when I look back, that was my soul's way of communicating with me through the body, through the mind. But obviously, many of us, I just pushed it away and I said, oh no, I've got to carry on. I've got a duty to these children that I teach dance to. I've gone to India for 10 years to learn it, so I have to continue. And there was so much guilt that came with this thought of wanting to let it go. But then eventually I had to really listen to my inner self. And it was on a silent retreat where I had the message come through that it's time, you are destined for a bigger or different path. I won't say bigger, but definitely different. And that's what I'm now doing.
I think it's interesting to talk about like how it affects people physically. As a physical therapist, I often see the body revealing the truth before someone can actually articulate that. So, how do you think the body communicates when we're living outside of that alignment?
Yeah. So for me, it was illness. It was a chronic health diagnosis. I got diagnosed with a rare disease, and I just thought it was normal. I wasn't really on the healing path so much then. So I just went to medics and I got medical intervention. And it's only now when I look back, I realize that was my body speaking to me. And so any symptoms we get, I believe that that is a signal from the soul telling us that something's out of alignment. And now we know the chakra system as well is coming into awareness. So many doctors are saying that this is true. This is ancient wisdom. It's thousands of years old. The mind and body are connected, and that's what communicates with us.
Nikita, was there a moment? When was the time that you realized that your soul was communicating with you?
Well, I've always been intuitive as a child, so I've always felt like I had a voice in my mind that was guiding me and telling me what to do. And just for clarification, as most of us already know, we've got two voices in our minds. We've got our ego mind, which is our lower self, that voice of doubt and the one that holds us back. And then we've got our higher self. And unfortunately, not many people know how to differentiate between these two voices. And because I was very naturally intuitive as a child and a young person, I was able to tap into my higher self. And so that's the voice that told me to go to India when I was just 18. That's the voice that guided me to set up my dance school, to publish my poetry book, and then eventually to let my school go. So everything in my life that I've done has been following that voice of my higher self.
Was there any fear in following that voice?
Yes, the fear always comes from the lower mind, that ego saying, but what if? What if it doesn't work out? What if this? What if that? And I think the practice of listening to that higher self more, and the more you train it, the more that lower voice just starts to quieten down. Some people think that we need to get rid of it, but we don't. We just want to quieten it down.
Nikita, I think sometimes people hear the word karma and they think about like being punished.
Yeah.
How do you distinguish karma from blame or like some sort of maybe like cosmic punishment?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point because so many people misunderstand karma. It's simply a pattern. It's simply cause and effect. And so we've got our psychological patterns, such as perfectionism, procrastination, people pleasing. But karmic patterns go deeper than that because we carry them on a soul level. So if we believe in reincarnation, we say that we come into this life with our karma, so with our patterns, and we each have an individual set of patterns, also called soul lessons. So we've all come with a unique curriculum to share and to learn and to grow. So it's really important to recognize that everything around us is simply trying to teach us. It's all mirroring or projecting what's going on within. And so when my clients come to me and say, oh, I'm upset with my husband, or I'm upset with my children, or this person's triggered me, I say, yeah, but what is it about you that got triggered? So go inwards and let's identify what is your karmic pattern and then what's your soul lesson.
Nikita, we've talked about this with other guests, but I'm just curious, what is your interpretation of a dark night of the soul? And have you been through one or more than one? And
Yeah.
can you just go into a little bit about that for us?
Yes, very good question. The dark night of the soul, in my experience, it's even deeper than depression. You know, when we look at clinical depression, I actually feel the word depression is thrown around a lot nowadays because I think a lot of people are going through the dark night of the soul, but they don't know about it. So therefore they're taking medication and they're trying to suppress their symptoms, but actually it's an awakening. It's an opportunity. It's the soul tapping, saying, hello, I'm here. I want you to awaken me within you. And so when I went through my first awakening, let's say, it was my health scare. It was being diagnosed with a rare disease and being told by doctors that even with medication, I may only have 5 years to live. And that was so frightening because I was only in my mid-20s at the time. I was a professional dancer. I was healthy. I was a vegetarian and non-smoker. So from my point of view, I'd done everything by the book and I didn't understand why I was faced with this serious illness. But then because of my time in India, my background, my knowledge and my upbringing as well, I was able to understand that this is an awakening. And so then I drew on holistic tools like meditation, yoga, affirmations, journaling, all of these practices, energy healing as well, that helped me to get through. And then the second time in my life was recently when I made this decision to let go of my dance school. I would say that was a dark night of the soul because I went through this whole period of grief and guilt and shame and so much conditioning. And in the end, I had to take that brave step, you know, and I'm so glad that I did. And I'm on the other side and I'm so grateful. And I just really want to support people to support their bridge from karma to dharma.
Nikita, what do you think is the greatest cost? Not necessarily financially, but maybe spiritually or physically, of continuing to live according to expectations rather than with authenticity.
Yeah, that's a cost in all areas of life. And we suppress it, we carry on, we think that it's going to go away by itself. I hear people say that it's God's will, this is my fate, the universe is going to make it happen. But actually, we need to take action. What a lot of people don't know is that we have free will. And so we always have a choice, regardless of what situation we're in. We always have a choice in how we perceive that situation. We may not necessarily be able to change our circumstances, but we can change the way we perceive them. And so the cost of staying stuck affects all areas of our life. And actually, if we go back to the point I made earlier, that we're all here to fulfill our soul lessons. By staying stuck and not taking action, we're just delaying. I would say we're wasting our time on earth. It's like going to university but not studying or not attending the lectures. It's actually a waste and we'll just have to be reborn. And that's how karma comes about, because then we need to then again experience. And people come to me and say, why do I keep going through the same things again and again? And it's like, it's trying to get your attention.
So, Nikita, what has been one of your maybe more powerful soul lessons for yourself?
I think one of them was courage, which I went through recently, building up the courage to let go of my school, being able to face people and tell them that I was going to step back. Another one's using my voice. I've always had this feeling that I need to shrink or I need to suppress my voice. And it probably comes from lifetimes of, conditioning, being told not to speak. And so I've been working a lot in this lifetime on really being able to speak up and articulate and claim my space. And next week, I'm doing my first TEDx talk. And so that's a real milestone moment for me as a soul to be able to step onto that stage and say, yes, my voice is important.
Do you believe our Dharma evolves throughout our lifetime? Or do you think there's one central purpose that we're continually uncovering?
Yeah, so many people think Dharma is your job title, your career. For me, it's a state of being. It's all aspects of our life. So it's not like I'm living my Dharma in one area and I'm not in another. Living in Dharma means I am in my higher self. And within the higher self, there are archetypes. So there's specific archetypes, which is your soul's core nature. You were born, each one of us was born with our core nature. And when we go against that core nature, that's when we have problems. That's when we have physical symptoms, mental health, all the problems that we have. It's because our soul is saying, hey, this is not what we came here for. We're out of alignment. And so living your Dharma means stepping into your true nature.
Nikita, can you go into a little bit more and expand on maybe what those Dharma archetypes are?
Well, yeah, the Dharma archetypes come from the Vedas, which is the oldest scripture in the world. And these names have been given to us recently, actually, by Chokoisky, I think. So he's written a book called The Dharma Archetypes. I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. And so there's 5 main ones, and they are, as I say, your soul's true nature. So it's how we came to earth with this type. But because of conditioning, that type gets suppressed. So we'll go through each of them. There's 5. One of them is the merchant. Merchant archetype is someone who's very charismatic. They're very witty, they're quite funny, they're the life and soul of the party. They're the type of person they walk into a room and they light it up. Another one is the warrior. The warrior wants to support a cause. They're passionate about doing something meaningful, about making change that impacts other people. Another one is the educator. That's my archetype. Someone who wants to share their knowledge, wants to teach people, wants to help others to grow and expand their mindset. Another one is a laborer, which is someone who works very hard. The majority of the population are laborers. They're the people that get things done. They like to create stability for their families and for society. And then finally, the outsider. And this is this person that's able to see things outside of the box. So they're able to be innovative, create something new or unusual. For example, Steve Jobs was an outsider. So when you know your archetype, you're then able to work in alignment with it. And the problem we have is that people have been conditioned. So let's say someone's born a merchant. A child is naturally funny, playful, charismatic, cheeky, but their parents say to them, don't be like that. You shouldn't behave like that. You should be seen and not heard. That's inappropriate. Then they'll get suppressed. And then they'll go their whole lives not being funny, not being witty, not being charismatic. And therefore they're going against their soul's nature. And then they experience some form of depression and wonder why. And so this work brings us back home to ourselves.
I was going to say, when someone realizes that they're living someone else's version of success, what would you say are some of the first steps that they could take towards kind of reclaiming their authentic identity?
Yeah, the first thing is to get to know who you are. To even have the question, who am I, is a starting point. Just to even be curious and inquisitive. And so many of us are looking externally for answers. We're looking on social media, we're outsourcing our power. But actually, we need tools like meditation, energy healing, journaling, etc., to go inwards and to get to know ourselves.
Spiritual journey that you wish people would talk more honestly about?
I think it is this about being true to who you are. And I'm very passionate about people fulfilling their soul lessons. As I said, I feel like life is like university. And if we're not studying, what are we doing here? Like, we need to be actively working on ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to come back life after life, which is not a bad thing, but we're going to just be repeating. It's like retaking modules. So we want to be working on ourselves. And that's why it's so important to have a mentor. Going through life without a mentor is like going to school without a teacher.
Who do you consider like mentors of yours?
When I was in India for 10 years, I was privileged to train with a variety of people. Indian classical dance teachers, yoga teachers, meditation facilitators, and then, of course, in the UK, since COVID, a lot of teachers online as well. There's too many to mention, but I've always learned from people. In fact, I learn from my students, I learn from my clients, I learn from children. We're always learning. And so what I look for in a mentor is someone who's living it. So many people teach from textbooks, so they might know the theory, but they're not living it practically.
What would be the first pattern or belief you would try to identify to understand what's keeping them stuck?
First thing I would do is look into their soul. The soul is seated in the third eye, located here. So when I meet people, I don't look into their eyes, I look into their soul. And it's such a vulnerable experience when somebody looks into you. You feel seen, you feel recognized, and it's such a beautiful moment. So actually, if I had 5 minutes with somebody, I might not even talk to them.
We hear people talk about holding space for someone else or holding sacred space for other people or our clients. Can you describe that in your own words, holding space for someone?
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant when I said looking into somebody's soul and not necessarily needing to speak. Because when we speak, we need to identify where are we speaking from. So if we're speaking from the ego, then we're not actually making much progress. In order to evolve, we really want to tap into our higher self. And the language of the higher self is silence. So that's why it's more productive to sit for 5 minutes in silence than it is for 5 minutes to talk. And so that's why I wrote my book, Meditation Through Poetry, to give people those moments of silence.
Can you talk about a moment where you experienced an undeniable divine guidance?
I think it was when I made my decision to go to India for the first time, because I went against the norm by not going to university. In my culture, it's like a given that everyone, should go to university, get a degree. And I told my parents I didn't want to go. I said I wasn't suited for conventional education. I wanted to explore myself, get to know who I am. And I felt like India was calling me. And so I guess it was that divine guidance that guided me there. And I ended up staying 10 years. And at first it was a culture shock. I was from the UK, and I don't know if you've been to India, but pollution and heat and all of these things. But it was the peace that I found there. And it was that experience of just living a simple life. And this was before smartphones, before social media, and really going inwards and getting to know who I am on a soul level and what my purpose is.
Nikita, many people, especially nowadays, are feeling like a pull or a call to kind of explore more and trying to figure out like what their soul purpose is. But can you talk a little bit about how it felt for you, like how that pull or that call to India, what did it look like? What did it feel like? What did you go through when you were experiencing that?
Yeah, it was exactly that. It was this question like, who am I? Where am I from? Like, what am I here for? What's my purpose? It's one of the most Googled questions of today. And I had this question that many years ago. And so, what advice I would give people that are searching for their purpose is your purpose is not something outside of you, it's something inside of you. So you're searching for your purpose by looking for a job or looking for something. It's not that. It's a state of being. And so when you're in that state of being that's aligned with your archetype, as we discussed earlier, that's when you show up in your authentic nature. And then it doesn't matter what job you do. The job is secondary. What's primary is your state. For example, I'm an educator. So every day I want to share. If I don't share, then I don't feel like I'm in alignment. I want to help people. I want to teach people things. So that's me being in alignment. Now, whether I'm a school teacher, a university professor, a Dharma coach, it wouldn't matter. That's secondary. What's important is I show up in my true nature.
So, Nikita, with my background in yoga, Reiki, and as a physical therapist, I've seen that transformation oftentimes requires our nervous system to feel safe before a more lasting change can happen. So, how do you see nervous system regulation fitting into our spiritual awakening?
Yeah, so important because many people work on their mindset, but they don't work on their body, and vice versa. Many people go for yoga classes, somatic practices, but then they don't do any mindset work. So I was trained as a yoga teacher, dancer, and I also studied neurolinguistic programming. And so it's that combination of the body and the mind that works together. As we said, the body is always communicating with us. If you feel like a croaky throat, or if you feel like you've got a ball in your throat, it's your throat chakra saying that there's something that wants to come out, but it's being held back. And so it's having those tools to be able to work on, okay, what is this that might be in my throat? So let's work on it from a mindset point of view. And then being able to clear that blockage. So both have to be done simultaneously.
How would you help people distinguish their intuition versus like reacting from fear or another emotion?
Yeah, this relates to the body. So the body tells us which voice is in our mind. So at the very beginning, I said we've all got the lower self, which is the ego mind, and then the higher self, which is the soul. And the body will tell us because the body will contract when it's the lower self, and it will expand if it's the higher self. So when I thought about going to India, I expanded. And then, of course, you get the fluttering and the fear, but that's secondary. And so it's being able to be in touch with your body to be able to recognize which voice is in your mind.
And I'm curious about kind of the physical, the nervous system, because I know you've had some of your health issues. Was there a point with some of the medical things you went through that you had the like a moment, or you feel like there was a choice that you could either go down one path or another?
Yes. So I, when I got, just before I got diagnosed, I had to have a major lung surgery, and I went and had this, and there was a moment where I was given a choice. Um, we're going quite deep now, but each soul gets given points in our lives where we can take like an exit. We can choose to leave. And this is how we explain children, young people, sudden death. And I was given that choice. Do you want to live or do you want to die? And this was before my diagnosis. So this was when I was in the operating theatre. And obviously I chose to live. But even then, after the surgery, I got diagnosed and I was told I had 5 years. But I wasn't worried at that point because I knew that I'd made that soul decision, made that soul contract to live. So that was a really key moment for me. And so I believe that each one of us is given exit points in our life, and where we're given a choice. Do you want to stay or do you want to go? And why would the soul want to go? Because there might be a preview that there might be more suffering if they were to continue living, or because they have to continue their soul lessons. And so they would say, actually, I'm not able to complete them in this life. I'll go and I'll come back. So this is going deeper into reincarnation. Don't know that we are given free will, and so it's us and God, us and the universe. We're a team. We co-create together. That's manifestation. That's everything. And so some people think God is doing everything and we're doing nothing. Some people think we do everything and there is no God doing anything. But that's, in my experience, it's both of us. And so a soul contract is an agreement between us and God and other souls. And the whole purpose is to fulfill our soul lessons. So let's say, for example, one of my soul lessons is courage. I will need to be born into a family or have a relationship which requires me to have courage.
Nikita, I wanted to just go back to your what you were sharing about you having that choice. Did you consciously choose life because you felt like your purpose wasn't complete?
Yeah, I mean, because it was happening in the operating theatre under
Yeah.
anaesthetic, it wasn't an intellectual process. But yes, I must have chosen to continue living because I felt like I had a purpose. And it's quite a lot to die and come back into another life and to be brought up again and to get to know a new family. I think I just took the easy option.
I'm glad you took that option.
Right, exactly.
So I wanted to talk about people pleasing. And I think that there's a question whether or not it's a like a personality trait or maybe just a way of kind of like a survival pattern. Where do you
Yes.
believe that pattern originates from? And
Yeah.
then how could someone find a way to break free of it?
So all psychological patterns, people pleasing is one of them, perfectionism, uh, so many others, procrastination. There's something deeper that's underneath that, and that's the karmic pattern. And that is based on the soul. So the psychological pattern comes from the mind, and the karmic pattern comes from the soul. And so it relates to the soul lesson. So if your soul lesson is to learn to use your voice, let's say, to speak your truth, then you may have a tendency of people pleasing, because the point is that you need to break through that. And so that's why it's very difficult to get rid of our psychological patterns just like that. We have to go deeper and to understand what's the soul lesson here, what's happening on a karmic level. And we can't intellectually do that. We need to go inwards, and we need to, again, have a mentor to be able to help us to dissect this for us. And it comes back to something around the self-love, self-judgment, self-compassion, always something related to the self. So people pleasing would be a lack of self-love, for example. So it's being able to identify how the pattern relates to the underlying cause.
Nikita, can you talk a little bit about how our choices, our actions, our behaviors affect our karma?
Yes, so everything that we're doing, we're contributing to our karma. So not only have we come into the world with a store bank of karma, which we call sanskars, but then every single moment, every choice we make, every thought, every action, we're contributing to our karma. That's why we say, do good things, think good things, because we're always either filling our account or we're taking away from it. And so karma is your thoughts, your words, your intentions, and your actions. And also inaction is a form of karma. Not taking action is also contributing. So it's very important to be self-aware. What am I thinking? What am I saying? What's my intention? And what action am I taking or not taking? For example, if you donate money to your church or to your spiritual place, and then you go and tell everybody about it, then that's actually wiped out the karma, because it's come from ego. So in order to build or accumulate your karma in a positive way, you need to do things with pure intention. So check in, where is this coming from? Why am I doing this? Am I doing it to prove something, or am I doing it for just being in a state of purpose? And so that proving, obligation, the negative side, is coming from our survival. And once we overcome that, we get to a point of service. That's where we want to be. So Dharma is a state of service. It's a state of being and contributing.
Do you think that's why achievement and fulfillment don't always go hand in hand?
Yeah, because achievement and fulfillment is, again, might be coming from the ego. It depends where the intention is. And that's how I felt after 20 years of running a dance school. I had the awards, I had everything. But actually, the intention was wanting to prove, was wanting to make myself feel good. And it wasn't coming from that pure place anymore. It was when I started, but over time, it started to get diluted. And so then I realized, lots of things happened. The student numbers started going down. The finances started going down. I started having a lot of obstacles. And then I realized that this wasn't aligned, that this was my karma, but actually I was ready to step into my Dharma.
Nikita, can you talk a little bit about manifestation and how we ourselves affect our manifestation with our mindset? And as an example, like using where a lot of people have a scarcity mindset, or they're thinking or focusing on what I don't have, what I don't want, and how that affects our reality.
Yeah, so manifestation is simply creating. And again, we're co-creating with the universe, us and God, we're a team. And so when you manifest, it's those same principles. It's your thoughts, it's your words, it's your intentions, your beliefs, and your actions. All those 5 things need to be aligned. So if you think something, but you believe something else, your manifestation won't happen. If you speak something, but your intention is different, then the manifestation won't happen. So the alignment has to take place. It's like baking a dish. You've got to have these 5 ingredients. You can't have anything else come into that. You can't have self-doubt. You can't have fear. Anything else is going to ruin that dish. And so what we want to do is really check in with ourselves and say, what do I want? And where is this coming from? So you can want anything in life. You can want a mansion, you can want a sports car. It doesn't matter what you want. But where is my intention coming from? Is it to prove? Is it to show off? Is it to look good in society? Or is it for me? I just want to enjoy it. And the manifestations that happen fastest are the ones that come from service. So if you say, I want a mansion because I want to host retreats for people to hold space for them, you'll get the mansion very quickly. Because God wants you to do service. That's what we're here for. So with everything you want, always have service at the end of it. Even people come to me and say, I want a relationship. I say, why? Oh, because I want to feel good. Well, that's not enough. You feeling good, you being with your soulmate, how is that going to help the world? What are you going to do? What's your service? And as soon as you get that piece, that's the missing piece.
That's a great explanation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very thought-provoking, Nikita, I think, for a lot of us to probably hear that, because I think a lot of us, we either think that our manifestation or just what we want out of our reality is not working at all, and we think like everything is fighting against us.
Exactly. And again, it goes back to, where am I operating from? Am I in my lower self or my higher self? So to summarize everything, we want to be in our higher self as much as possible. How do you do that? There are tools. You have to find the tools that work for you. And then when you're in your higher self, you align those 5 things. And you make sure that everything you do, say, and desire comes from that place.
Nikita, I think that they should be doing it for free, or that money shouldn't be involved. And I actually had someone tell me that the money isn't, it's an energy exchange. It's what allows you to continue to serve. Can you talk a little bit about the people who are getting stuck, feeling bad about maybe asking for a certain amount of money for a service versus they should be doing it for less?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so many people have this misunderstanding that spirituality should be free and spiritual teachers should be giving their knowledge for free. And one thing to point out is that we are not renunciating. There's a difference between a spiritual teacher or mentor that's living in the real world. Not to say that people who are monks don't, but they've renunciated. That's their path. And so that's their soul journey. That's their choice to do that. Perhaps that's their soul lesson that they needed to learn. Perhaps in their last life, they were too materialistic and they had to learn to be able to detach. Maybe detachment's their soul lesson. So one thing to recognize is that everything we're doing, we should be rewarded, we should be compensated. And as you rightly said, money is an energy, it's a resource. And so if we think of it as an energy that flows, it comes, it goes, and we shouldn't feel that guilt or shame around it. And as you rightly said, it allows us to do more. The more money you had, the more you'd put into your podcast, you'd host retreats, you would do much more to help people. And again, it comes back to that piece of service. You'd be able to help more people if you had more money. And so it's the intention. So if you're trying to manifest money, always do so with that pure intention. What do I want to do with it?
Yeah, it's a common thing that a lot of practitioners struggle with, while they're getting started or even trying to expand, and they're, going back and forth but struggling. Should I raise my prices? Should I keep them where they're at? And there's a mindset, if I raise my prices, I'm not going to get business, or people are not going to want to pay for it. So I think also we have to believe in ourselves, and we have to believe in the value that we're giving or serving.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to the ego, because those doubts and fears are coming from the lower mind.
Right.
And so if I'm in my highest self, then what would I price this as? It doesn't mean it needs to be a high price.
Right.
It just needs to be aligned with what you feel at that time. So it's about getting out of our own way. My NLP mentor used to say, self-doubt is self-indulgence. And I like that. Yeah.
Nikita, there's someone listening right now who's just feeling a level of exhaustion or disconnect, or feeling very uncertain about why they're here and what they should be doing. What would you want them to know about finding their own path with moving from karma to dharma?
Yeah. The first thing is just to go inwards, to experience yourself on a soul level. And that's so important. So many people don't know who they are. Even on a personality level, many people don't know their favorite color, for example, their favorite food. And this is about going beyond that. It's about, who am I on a soul level? So meditating on the third eye, that's something that I did very early on in my spiritual journey. Getting to know yourself. Who is my soul? What is it? And it's not an intellectual thing, it's an experience. And so when you experience your own light, that's when you're able to understand who you are. And then the clarity comes through as to why you're here. And all those questions will get answered. But the first thing starts with connection.
Nikita, if I asked you to finish this sentence, what would you say? The soul is.
Limitless, pure, abundant, like a pure point of light. It's beautiful, it's radiant. And that's what I want everybody to experience, their pure soul.
And I have another question also, Nikita. Our podcast name is Mystery of the Soul. And what would you say about, has there been a mystery of the soul that you've discovered?
I think it is this journey from karma to dharma, being able to operate from this space of wholeness. And I always thought that people who lived in their higher self, they had to be nuns or priests or monks. I never thought that it was accessible for everyday people. And there was a point in my life where I did consider surrendering. And I went through a stage of celibacy, and I thought, no, this is it. I just want to be with God. I'm going to give up my life. And I actually went to a spiritual nun, and I got her guidance. And she said to me that God wants you to wear color in this life and white in your next life. And that answered everything for me. And it was a kind of nun that wears white. And so that was really powerful for me. And then it was very shortly after that that I met my husband. And I decided to then live a normal life, so to speak. And it's about living in the real world and still having this spiritual practice. And it's not just, oh, I do a few hours a week of yoga and meditation. It's I'm living it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we've definitely covered a lot today, and we've definitely gone deep. And I think the conversation, I think, was really good because we hear karma a lot thrown around, and just to kind of hear a perspective on it and maybe a good, really good explanation about it, I think helps clarify for some people that are really not understanding it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And also how we can transition into our Dharma as well.
Right. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. And again, reminder, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this. And leave some comments if you guys have comments. And if you have feedback, we'd love to hear it. So stay tuned, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
And to our listeners, if something stirred in your body, your breath, or your awareness during this conversation, trust that. Healing doesn't always arrive as answers. Sometimes it arrives as resonance.
And if you want more information on Mystery of the Soul, go to our website at www.mysteryofthesoul.com. And if you're interested in more about Leo's services, go to his website at www.leojmccarthy.com, and you can always book a free discovery session with him.
And if you're interested in the services that I'm able to provide, please visit arisewithjulia.com for any information about Dr. Julia LeBlanc. This has been Mystery of the Soul. Until next time, stay curious, stay embodied, and keep listening.